What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Jason Girallo video podcast. Yep, nope, not adapted lens. So here we All right, so those of you who have been trudging along with me over the past year or so probably recognize that intro is very similar, but not quite the same to the old adapted lens intro. Swapped out some logos, put in a couple of new pictures, and we're off to the races. So really excited that this is my very first time going live as Jason Girallo Photography, which of course I've been for a long time, although I hadn't been combining my education with my actual photography business until this video. So welcome. I have one quick tip for all of you who are Lightroom users. So this is a photography tip. Normally I'd be doing this on Friday, but I actually have something pretty special planned for tomorrow that I will talk about a little bit later in the video. So with that being said, let's just get started. So I use Lightroom as my photo manager. I'm sure probably most of you do as well. I love it. I think it's one of the most awesome pieces of software that you can possibly get to manage, edit your photos, to take it from start to finish, to deliver your photos to your clients. And there's a lot of things in Lightroom that you may not know a whole lot about. If you're not me spending as much time as I do in Lightroom, I often joke that people think I spend all my time shooting, but really what I do is I spend all my time in front of my computer. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hop into Lightroom. Let me see if it can share my screen. This is the first time I'm doing this, by the way, so fingers crossed. All right, hopefully you all can see this. Let's see. Doop, there it is. And I'm going to make myself a little smaller because I'm kind of big there. Let's see how we do this. There we go. All right, so we are in the wonderfully beautiful world of Lightroom. And you can see this is just a regular collection. So if you are not familiar with Lightroom, there are two ways you can manage your photos. You can do it through folders and you can do it through collections. Those are sort of the two different ways. Folders means that you are editing the actual photo on the actual place it is stored. And in my mind, that is a big, big no-no, because folders mean that if you make something, a change in here, move something accidentally, it's moved on the drive, which could lead to all sorts of other chaos. Anyway, to leverage the power of this one tip, the key is you have to have all of your photos in collections, not in folders. They'll always exist in folders because that's basically just browsing the drive that you have your photos stored in. Hopefully you have them stored on a single drive and backed up. We'll talk about that on another podcast. But I have all my photos on a single external drive in a photo folder. But I don't even show that when I'm looking at Lightroom, because really all I need to worry about is my collections. They are a mirror image of my drive, by the way. So every single folder, every single shoot is labeled and managed exactly the same, whether it's a collection or a folder. The only difference is if I make a mess here, it doesn't actually impact the storage on my actual drive. So I can go back and fix it a whole lot easier with a lot less pain. And there's some other really cool benefits, and this is one of them. So if you're not doing this, you are missing out. Lightroom has two different versions. I don't know if you know that, but Lightroom has Lightroom Classic, which is the program that you see here. But Lightroom also has Lightroom, I guess it's called Lightroom, I think it might just be called Lightroom now, Lightroom or Lightroom CC or whatever it's called. Basically, it's the cloud version of Lightroom. It allows you to upload all your photos to the cloud, store them there. You never have to worry about backing up your photos because they're stored in Adobe's cloud, which is a great feature. It's something that I've done before, actually before I was a working professional. But the problem is that they charge you by the terabyte. So if you have as many photos as I have, it's $30 a month just to store your photos, which is, it adds up. And the bigger your photo library, of course, the more expensive it is, $10 per terabyte. So the cool alternative to that is by using collections, you can actually kind of get exactly the same experience where all your photos are synced across all of your devices. And all you're going to do, once you create all your collections, there's this little arrow right here. It looks like two arrows pointing in different directions. That's the little sync button. So once you move your photos over to collections, you can actually click that sync button. You'll see next to each one of mine, there's that little arrow. And what's really cool about this is now your photos mirror on your devices. So on my phone are all of the photos. Let me switch, see if I can do this. Yep, there we go. On my phone are all of the photos that I have in my photo library, but it's on my phone, and it's on my iPad, and it's on my other laptop, and it's on my lightroom.adobe.com. So if I go on somebody else's computer, they're all there. You can do this with a single folder. So if you wanted to do a collection just called Portfolio, like I have here, let me switch back. You can see this is just called Portfolio. Basically, it is just I mark those green, and that's how it automatically creates. I use a smart collection, and it automatically loads onto there and then uploads to the cloud. I'll do another tutorial on exactly how I do that, because it's kind of a cool process, and it works really great so that you have a constant running basically highlight reel of your favorite photos. But beyond that, you can do this with any folder in your collection. So I have all of my wildlife photos synced. And so there's all of the places I've gone to shoot wildlife photos, and you can see every single one of them has that double arrow attached to it. And what's really neat about this is once you do it once, every time you import, as long as it's to the same folder, it just automatically uploads the new photos. One of the things that I struggled with when I was just starting to do this was that sometimes it would fail, and I couldn't figure out why. And here's the key. Make sure that you rename your photos. So if you're not doing that already, it's a really, really important thing to do. So when you're importing, it's the easiest point to do it. So I rename my photos at import. You rename them basically the shoot or location, depending on what you're doing. I use a date, and then I use a sequence. So it's a really simple way to know exactly when, and also to make sure you're not accidentally duplicating when you're taking pictures, so that you're not causing issues with Lightroom's photo management. So rename your photos on import. It makes a big difference. But once they're in Lightroom, which I'm assuming most of you probably have your photos in Lightroom, just a simple click and your photos go up to the cloud. And the coolest part about this is that Lightroom is syncing the smart previews, which means that you have raw editing capabilities on all of your devices. So if you go on your phone, download the Lightroom app on your phone, you can raw edit, and it's gonna sync back to your computer. So if you change the brightness of an image on your phone, you go back to your computer a few minutes later, and that image has been changed as well. So it allows you to really work, and it also allows you to cull. So you can pick flag or rate images from your phone, from your iPhone, your Android device, from your laptop, your iPad, wherever you are. Really super simple, and it allows you to work wherever you are. So one of my favorite things before the pandemic, my wife would go get a haircut, and I'd be sitting there, in the husband chair, because she's getting a haircut and doing whatever she's doing. And, if you're in the husband chair, you're just sort of sitting there rocking and waiting for it to be over with. But now I bring my laptop or my iPad with me, and I can actually work on my photos while she's getting her haircut. Most places today have free Wi-Fi, so I'm there connected. And if it doesn't, it still has the preview loaded onto the device, so you can still edit. It just won't sync back till you hit that Wi-Fi network. Now, there is one caveat to discuss, and this is sort of where Lightroom CC or Lightroom Cloud, whatever you want to call it, the other version of Lightroom that's not Lightroom Classic, has an advantage, and that is that the files are not the full RAW file. So when they're uploaded via using these collections, it's just uploading a smart preview, which is a 1 megabyte or so file, which means that if you were going to do something like go into Photoshop from your phone or from a different device, it's not going to be editing the full res image. So that's kind of a bummer. But beyond that, if you're just doing Lightroom adjustments, it's a really great way to do it on the road. And what's really cool, especially if you're using it on a mobile device, it means if you're an Instagram person like I am, and probably most of the photographers out there are, you have your collection on your phone, which means you can easily share it to Instagram, which is a huge benefit, because I know, at least in the past, before I started doing this, every time I wanted to share an image from my quote-unquote professional camera to my phone, I'd have to export it out of Lightroom onto my desktop, and I'd have to airdrop it. I use a Mac, so I'd airdrop it to my phone, or email it to my phone, or text it to my phone, whatever. And then I'd have to use my phone to post to Instagram, because that's Instagram's rules. You can't use a computer to post to Instagram. So by having your collection, all of your photos right here on your phone, and the smart previews are perfectly sized for Instagram and Facebook. They're the right size to post. 1 megabyte or so is nice and small, but the quality is plenty good for Insta especially. So it's really killing two birds with one stone, because you have all your photos, all your edits, everything right on your phone or right on your tablet or even on another laptop. And yet the device, you don't have to carry around a hard drive everywhere you go if you're just wanting to cull images or just do some simple edits. So no hard drive attached. You're not sitting there with your laptop with a cable hanging off and a hard drive hanging off the end or anything like that. It's all done wirelessly. It's all done through the internet. Really love the fact that you can go to lightroom.adobe.com and just go on there and log in with your credentials, and your entire portfolio is there too. So if you're, slacking off at work, no one does that, right? So if you're slacking off at work, or if you're just at a friend's house and you want to do some photo editing or whatever, you can do it. Or if you're at your mom's house and you don't have your computer or whatever, you can do it right from lightroom.adobe.com and edit the photos, cull your photos. Your entire library is right there. So it's just such a cool way. And because they're smart previews, I know you're thinking like, wow, you have 80,000 images in your collection like I do. It doesn't take that long because they're only 1 megabyte each. It's not like it's uploading the entire raw file. So it actually uploads really quickly. So anyway, if you're not using this killer thing, it is an awesome, awesome, awesome free feature in Lightroom Classic. What's even better than that is it doesn't eat up the storage that is given to you by Lightroom. So, Adobe gives you X number of gigabytes of storage, which is, paltry. I think it's 100 gigs. It's not very much if you're a photographer. But this does not eat up that storage space. So Adobe doesn't look at smart previews as a penalty on how much storage you have. So I have 80,000 smart previews rendered in the cloud, and they don't count at all to my Adobe storage. So I'm not paying for any extra storage. It works awesome. So if you're not using this Lightroom tip, if you're not using this part of Lightroom, you're totally missing out, because it really is an awesome feature. And with that, the one other thing I wanted to announce, I had planned on doing a Photo Tip Friday tomorrow at 4 p.m., but I ended up having another appointment. But the cool news is that tomorrow afternoon, or tomorrow evening for those on the East Coast, I will be having Jeff Cable, the Olympic photographer, onto this show on Facebook and YouTube and also on Twitter. So if you guys want to tune back in tomorrow, it'll be probably around 8 p.m. I'm finalizing details to make sure that that's going to happen at that time, but it probably will be at 8 p.m. tomorrow night. I'd love to see you here. We're going to have kind of a little chat about the Olympics and some cool things that Canon's doing with their new cameras. Would absolutely love to see you. Love to see your questions in the chat. And with that, I will see you